Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Discovery Live Ask an Expert. My name is Laura Baltic, and I am the Grants Manager at the Fort Collins Museum of Discovery, and I'm so excited to be your co-moderator for our panel this evening. We've got some really great speakers lined up for our bilingual panel tonight, and I'll bring them on in just a moment. But just want to share with you all, if you haven't tuned in before, Discovery Live is part of an ongoing series, and for the remainder of the year, all of our panels are going to be focused on issues around mental health. And this is in conjunction with the special exhibition that's at the Museum of Discovery right now. It's called Mental Health, Mind Matters. And this exhibit is all about destigmatizing the conversation and making it okay to talk about mental health. So while the museum is currently closed, I do really encourage you to check back at FCMoD.org and follow us on social media. You can find a lot of great virtual resources around this exhibit and also get some updates on when we'll reopen. Lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you do enjoy the program tonight and would like to help us continue to bring this type of programming to the community, you can donate online to the museum at fcmod.org/donate. There's a link up at the top of the screen. And so with that, I just want to get right into our panel. Tonight, we're chatting with a couple of counselors from Poudre High School and an amazing crew of student leaders who are part of a group called Ambassadors. And they're going to share with us about how teens experience and navigate mental health. This is a really special panel. For the first time ever, this is going to be a bilingual panel. So for the first 30 minutes, we'll have Spanish-speaking panelists who are going to be moderated by Counselor Alan Flores. And then at 6:30, I'll rejoin the panel with my English-speaking co-moderator, Counselor Cass Ponsolo, and our English-speaking panelists. Please do feel free to ask questions or make comments of our panelists throughout the program. You can do so just in the comments function of whatever live stream you're watching. So at this point, I'd love to welcome on our Spanish-speaking panelists. Hi, Alan.
Antes de nada más les quería traducir un poco de lo que estaba diciendo la señora Laura. Nada más recordarles que el programa de hoy es parte de una serie. Y le queremos recordar que durante todo el año el panel de Discovery Live se concentrará en diferentes temas relacionados con la salud mental, juntos con la nueva exposición especial del museo, Salud Mental, La Mente Importa. Esta exhibición se trata sobre animar la conversación, más que nada en la comunidad latina, haciendo que está bien hablar sobre ese tema. Y mientras que el museo actualmente está cerrado, pueden visitar el sitio web FCMoD.org y seguirlos en las redes sociales para acceder a los recursos virtuales y actualizaciones sobre cuándo pueden abrir otra vez. Les quiero introducir también a los alumnos que tenemos aquí. Antes de eso, les quiero presentar quién soy yo. Mi nombre es Alan Flores, soy uno de los consejeros de los hispanohablantes en la escuela de Poudre. Les voy a presentar a un alumno que se llama Eric. Eric, adelante.
Hola, yo soy Eric, como Alan dijo. Muchas gracias. Y sí, yo voy a Poudre, como Laura dijo, y estoy en mi cuarto año ahí.
Zaira.
Hola, me llamo Zaira, voy a Poudre también y estoy en tercer año de prepa.
Kelly.
Hola, soy Kelly y yo estoy en mi tercer año de high school también.
Y la última, Sofía.
Hola, me llamo Sofía y también estoy en el tercer año de la prepa.
Perfecto. Para lo que están escuchando, nada más les quiero decir el programa de los embajadores. Estos alumnos son mentores que están comprometidos a construir relaciones con sus compañeros y ofrecen seguridad y una identidad en esa relación. Cada semana estos líderes se reúnen con los alumnos del 9º grado para enseñar y discutir ciertos temas como la diversidad, la prevención de agresiones, de acoso y agresiones sexuales, el manejo del estrés, el conocimiento y el apoyo de la salud mental. Y su trabajo realmente es importante, no solamente para Poudre, sino para la cultura y la comunidad latina. Y como consejero también, estoy muy agradecido del trabajo que estos alumnos están haciendo, porque realmente es algo especial lo que están haciendo y el tiempo que dedican cada semana para ofrecer los recursos a los alumnos y a los latinos es muy importante. Eso también les quiero agradecer a los alumnos. Pues para empezar, me gustaría saber cómo están todos de 0 a 10. 0 que están muy mal, 10 que están súper, súper bien. ¿Cómo se sienten el día de hoy?
Yo dijera un 8, estoy bien. Tuve la escuela hoy y me la pasé bien. Pude hablar con unos amigos con el mensaje y pues con eso me pude llegar en la posición que estoy ahorita. Me
Las
ayudó mucho.
amistades es importante para ti, te ayuda
Sí,
a manejar el estrés.
sí.
Perfecto. ¿Sofía?
Igual que Eric, yo me siento un 8. Las clases estuvieron muy fáciles. Nomás tengo 2 clases, entonces estuvieron muy fáciles y tuve ambassadors y fue muy divertido porque hicimos una actividad que nosotros creamos y entonces estuvo muy divertido.
Y Zaira, ¿y qué es lo que tú haces para que te sientes bien, para manejar tu estrés?
Bueno, la mayoría del tiempo duermo. Es como estoy cansada todo el día por la escuela y duermo y eso es lo que me hace sentir mejor.
También es una jugadera de baloncesto, ¿no?
Oh, sí, pero no, ahorita no estamos haciendo nada por el coronavirus.
Sí,
Entonces es como nuestra semana de descanso.
perfecto. ¿Sofía?
Ahora me siento como un 7. En la mañana fui como un 3 porque he estado enferma porque fui afuera en el frío y entonces me enfermé, pero no de la virus, gracias a Dios. Y, y con la escuela, obvio, como teníamos ambassadors hoy, me sentí mejor. Me gusta mucho mi grupo de mis freshmen y entonces sí, me siento bien.
Yo me siento como un 7 el día de hoy porque he pasado mucho tiempo con mi familia y me gusta estar con ellos porque hacemos cosas muy divertidas. También porque ya terminé con todo el trabajo de la escuela.
Bueno, obvio, es importante también hablar sobre este tema, ¿no? Más que nada, obviamente con la pandemia, ha habido muchos problemas acerca de la salud mental en los adolescentes, ¿no? ¿Cómo han ustedes manejado el balance, ¿no? De sus estudios, de mantener su vida social, de su vida personal? ¿Cómo lo han manejado ustedes?
Para mí ha sido difícil porque no ha mirado muchos de mis amigos, pero ha hecho videollamadas con unos amigos y como dije, ha mensajeado con otros amigos y para mí la música es todo, me ha ayudado con mucho y problemas de la escuela y problemas con la familia y todo. Entonces, escuchando música y haciendo videollamadas con mis amigos me ha ayudado mucho.
Para mí ha sido muy difícil porque estoy acostumbrada a siempre estar con gente porque siempre estoy en el básquetbol o con mis amigas. Entonces fue muy difícil de siempre estar con alguien, a estar sola todo el tiempo. Pero como dijo Eric, la música me ha ayudado mucho y también mi perro es mi favorito y siempre a cada ratito lo llevo a caminar y así es lo que me ayuda mucho para que no me sienta tan sola porque o yo no me puedo juntar con mis amigas tanto como antes, y eso me ha ayudado mucho.
Para mí, algo que me ayuda especialmente durante esta pandemia es mensajeando con mis primas y juntándome con ellas como ellas viven aquí y estamos muy cercas. Como somos tres, más nos podemos juntar y como somos alrededor del mismo año, podemos platicar de la escuela, podemos trabajar en la tarea y todo eso. Y luego también balanceo eso con, también me duermo mucho y nunca hice eso durante el año escolar normal, porque siempre estaba muy ocupada con mis deportes. Y entonces, durmiéndome de verdad me ayudó.
Para mí lo que me ha ayudado es poder mandarme mensajes con mis amigas, porque la mayoría de las clases las tenemos juntas, entonces al poder mandar un mensaje nos sentimos como conectadas aunque no estemos en el mismo lugar, y también hacer como chequeos, porque tal vez 3 veces a la semana nos decimos cómo estamos y cómo nos estamos sintiendo, y eso me ha ayudado a poder seguir en contacto con ellos y con ellas.
Bueno, déjenme les pregunto. Obviamente ahorita están en esa edad donde están encontrando su identidad, ¿no? De quién soy, quién quiero soy, perdón, quién quiero ser. Y la mayoría de ustedes están diciendo que las amistades o familiares de sus primos que están cerca de su edad. ¿Ustedes se sienten cómodos hablando con sus padres acerca de esto? Porque sé que es una cosa dentro de la cultura latina, ¿no? De que casi nunca se habla. No, es parte de temor o siempre dicen, no, es parte de tu edad, ¿no? Eso es una fase que se va a pasar. ¿Cómo se sienten ustedes en hablar con sus padres?
Para mí era difícil al principio, pero mi mamá siempre me ha dicho que está bien hablar y siempre ha estado ahí por mí, pero creciendo siempre ha tenido la idea que los hombres nunca lloran y nunca hablan, pero y tenía esa idea por muchos años, pero como les dije, mi mamá me ayudó mucho a sacar esa idea y poder hablar. Y entonces me siento más cómodo hablando ya que antes, pero sé que lo puedo hacer un poco más.
¿Y qué opinan ustedes? ¿Qué piensan que un padre puede hacer para involucrarse en sus vidas?
Bueno, primero, como dijo Eric, yo creo que, bueno, no es en todas, pero en las familias latinas la mayoría del tiempo son como, no son ignorantes, pero no son muy abiertos a los problemas mentales, y cada vez como que les dices algo te dicen, oh, no, nomás estás triste, no tiene nada que ver, vas a estar mejor mañana, eres muy dramática y así. Y siento que eso es algo muy tóxico que muchas familias latinas tienen, pero si seguimos haciendo cosas como esta, enseñándole a los padres que no somos dramáticos, que si hay un problema en verdad, que no tiene que ver con que si somos jóvenes, y eso tiene que ver, pero también que aunque estemos jóvenes todavía tenemos sentimientos y nos afectan muchas cosas que ellos creen que no nos pueden afectar.
Sí, yo también estoy de acuerdo de Zaira. Yo creo que muchos papás tratan de ignorar cuando su hijo pregunta así por qué se sienten así. Y especialmente en la comunidad latina, yo creo que es así algo que de verdad no hablamos. Y algo importante que yo creo que todos necesitamos poner atención es que, como yo personalmente, yo soy, yo siempre estoy haciendo deportes, siempre estoy muy emocionada, siempre tengo mucha energía. Y luego cuando llego a la casa, estoy tan cansada que más como hablo tantito y me duermo. Y ahora como ya no tengo esos deportes, ya no tengo las amistades a hablar en persona, es más difícil. Entonces me ha dormido más, me estoy tomando más naps y yo creo que es algo que necesitamos realizar porque es algo muy chico que yo hago, pero yo creo que de verdad, honestamente, me hago muy triste porque no puedo hacer las cosas que puedo hacer normalmente, especialmente con la coronavirus.
Yo creo que ha sido difícil para mí hablar con mi mamá y mis padres sobre esto porque a veces uno tiene el temor de ser juzgado por sus propios padres porque uno piensa que hace las cosas mal y nuestros padres a veces piensan que hacemos las cosas mal y eso es lo que causa que tengamos problemas mentales, pero la verdad para poder sobrepasar esos problemas hay que hablar con nuestros padres para que ellos nos den su opinión de lo que podemos hacer, porque la opinión de nuestros padres a veces ayuda a poder tomar mejores decisiones en el futuro. Y eso me ha ayudado mucho a mí para tomar mejores decisiones.
¿Y qué más opinan ustedes, los demás, que un padre puede hacer para apoyar a su hijo?
Para mí es nomás hablar y tener y que el hijo sienta que él puede hablar también.
Yo creo que solo que los padres le digan que los entienden y que no los, como dijo Kelly, los juzguen, que no nomás digan, no, nomás estás triste, no estás deprimido, no tienes ansiedad. Que en verdad les digan, te entiendo, entiendo cómo te sientes y a lo mejor que digan que si pueden ir a ver a alguien que los ayude para que se sientan mejor y no solo ignorarlos y dejarlos sufrir solos.
Yo también creo que otra opción puede ser así más platicar con los papás, más uno a uno, como los papás preguntan más preguntas como sobre el día y cómo se sentían y cómo crees que puedes así tener otro día mejor si tienes un día muy malo. Y yo creo que eso, así personalmente, creo que me puede afectar bueno. Si mis papás así me preguntan, ay, ¿cómo fue tu día? Ay, ¿por qué te sientes así? Y así más tener esa conexión.
Lo que estoy escuchando es que tanto como los padres, también los alumnos, ¿no? Ustedes también tienen la responsabilidad de sentirse cómodos en hablar con sus padres y estar bien, ¿no? De estar cómodos en decir, ¿sabes qué? Necesito que hablar, me tengo que desahogar. Me alegro que están diciendo eso. ¿Ustedes qué opinan que son las temas o las razones que los alumnos están batallando acerca de su salud mental?
¿Qué fue la pregunta?
¿Ustedes qué piensan que es qué razones hay que ahorita los alumnos están batallando con su salud mental? ¿Por qué?
Mucho es del virus, porque no tenemos la conexión con las otras personas, con nuestras amistades y muchas veces no tenemos esa conexión ahorita con nuestros padres porque muchas veces con las amistades no tenemos esa conexión porque no los podemos mirar cada día o cada semana y con los padres porque muchas veces ellos tienen sus problemas por sus trabajos o lo que sea y nos afecta a nosotros también y en veces nos sentimos como a lo mejor no podemos hablar porque es algo nuevo y no sabemos cómo hablar de esto y también en veces es de más de duro de hablar.
Como dijo Eric, creo que el coronavirus tiene mucho que ver con cómo los jóvenes se están sintiendo hoy. Todos nos sentimos solos porque no podemos hablar con nadie, no tenemos, como yo sé, como no tienes a un amigo al que tenías siempre y le puedes contar todo, no tienes a esa persona, aunque le puedes mensajear, no es lo mismo, yo creo. Y como tenemos mucho más tiempo libre, también el internet tiene mucho que ver con la depresión, porque cada ratito veo cosas como de gente diciendo cosas malas que puede afectar a mucha gente. Entonces creo que ahorita con el coronavirus y que tenemos tanto tiempo libre está en el internet, ha afectado a mucho a los jóvenes.
Sí, yo creo que algo que de verdad me ha cambiado a mí es que me podía despertar, podía ir a la escuela, podía estar muy ocupada, siempre haciendo actividades durante la escuela y luego ir a clases, hacer las tareas y luego cuando se acababa la escuela iba a tener práctica y luego ya se estaba bajando el sol y luego ya llego a la casa y fue una rutina y ahora ya no podemos hacer eso. Y como a mí, personalmente, yo corro campo y pista y eso me ha cambiado mucho porque yo, como es un deporte con un equipo, así haciéndolo juntos, se siente mejor. Entonces, corriendo sola se siente muy diferente y así me siento más sola haciéndolo más corriendo a mí misma y luego más llegar a la casa y sentir que no he hecho nada.
Yo creo que otro problema que ha causado la salud mental ha sido el estrés, tal vez el estrés de la escuela, porque al no poder ir a la escuela y aprender no es igual a poder aprender por línea, porque cuando uno aprende por línea hay más distracciones y causa que te distraigas y no pongas mucha atención y a la hora de hacer tarea te estresas porque no sabes cómo hacerlo, porque no pusiste atención al tener muchas distracciones y el estrés también porque yo creo que los maestros han estado dejando muchas más tareas que lo que dejaban antes y eso causa que los estudiantes se sientan solos y no tener alguien que los ayude con sus tareas.
Y como dijo Sofía, teníamos una rutina y ahorita no tenemos, a lo mejor ahorita no tenemos una rutina así y nuestras vidas se siente, a lo mejor se puede sentir como se anda gastando o no anda avanzando.
No, sí, estos son puntos muy válidos y algo que se debe de hablar, ¿no? Que es un cambio muy drástico lo que están haciendo ustedes, ¿no? El aprendizaje en línea es algo muy difícil que realmente yo pienso que muchos adultos no entienden de el compromiso del tiempo, de, como dices tú, que de las tareas que uno debe de hacer, ¿no? Es, realmente sí es mucho estrés para ustedes de que es muy difícil de manejar. Y quiero reconocer eso, ¿no? De que estamos escuchando lo que están diciendo, ¿no? Y también he escuchado mucho, bueno, todos ustedes hablando acerca de sus amigos y de lo importante de esas relaciones. ¿Me pueden hablar ustedes un poco acerca de quizás qué es lo que ustedes están haciendo para apoyar a sus amigos? Um, Quizás unos que están batallando un poquito más de los otros. Ustedes que son embajadores y que tienen esa capacitación de salud mental. ¿Qué es lo que ustedes ofrecen a sus amigos para que ellos sepan que están bien?
Yo como les dije que hago videollamadas, nomás hablo con ellos y les acuerdo que no hay una generación que ha hecho lo que andamos haciendo hoy y nomás les acuerdo que lo andamos haciendo bien.
Igual que Eric, videollamadas, De vez en cuando de vez en cuando les mando un mensaje y les pregunto cómo han estado, nomás para asegurarme que estén bien. Y nomás eso.
Algo que me recuerdo es una lección que enseñamos a uno de los novenos y fue de la diversión. Y como se dice en inglés, make the best out of a bad situation es haz algo bueno de una situación malo. Y obvio, como estamos en esta pandemia, te sientes solo. Pero como en esa lección estamos platicando de cómo nos reímos y que es chistoso. Y yo creo que como esa conexión con esas personas, especialmente si yo no los he conocido, pero así por la video llamada, se siente mejor, especialmente tener esa diversión y estar feliz.
Lo que yo hago es mandar un mensaje casi diario sobre un chequeo. Les pregunto a mis amigas cómo están, cómo han estado, qué están haciendo. Y a veces cuando dicen que no están bien, les digo que pueden contar conmigo con lo que sea, pueden contarme lo que quieran. O si es algo material como dinero o algo, que pueden contar conmigo. Y ofrezco mi ayuda para poderles ayudar a ellas.
Perfecto. Bueno, nada más nos queda unos minutos antes de terminar. Nada más quiero otra vez agradecer a los alumnos que están enfrente de ustedes el día de hoy. No es nada fácil estar enfrente de la computadora, ¿no? Y más en estas horas para discutir un tema muy serio, ¿no? Tenemos que reconocer de que realmente sí es algo muy difícil lo que están pasando y realmente no hay nada de lo que yo puedo decir que padres pueden decir para que esto sea mejor. Nada más es importante escucharlos y guiarlos un poco, ¿no? Porque realmente sí son tiempos muy difíciles y me gustaría terminar con cada uno de ustedes que digan un poquito de un consejo o últimas palabras para los que están escuchando de qué es lo que ustedes quieren de que salga de esta tema, ¿no? De este discurso para los padres, para los alumnos, que realmente para que sepan, ¿no? Que es algo serio y está bien hablar. Eric, ¿nos hace el favor de empezar?
Sí, sí hay estudiantes, nomás acuerden que, como les dije, no hay una generación que ha hecho esto. Y para los padres o otros adultos que anden mirando, nomás tengan paciencia.
Para los papás, solo que le pongan atención a sus hijos, que no todo es tonto, que algunas veces sí nos sentimos solos y tristes, y no solo es como dije, una tontería que es porque somos jóvenes, solo pónganos atención y entiendan que estamos pasando por tiempos que nunca habíamos pasado, es algo muy distinto, no sabemos cómo controlar nuestros sentimientos y lo que hacemos. Y para los estudiantes que sepan que no están solos, aunque sientas ahorita que estás solo, hay miles de personas que se sienten igual que tú. Y hay muchos números de teléfonos a los cuales les puedes marcar si necesitas alguien con quien hablar, y eso solo búscalo en línea y que se cuiden.
También como dijo Zaira, que los papás que ponen atención a las acciones y lo que dicen sus niños, porque las cosas más chicos pueden afectar a sus hijos muy grandes y muy graves. Y también para si hay unos estudiantes viendo esto, es que no importa si tus papás así no entienden, también tienes otras maneras de hablar, tienes consejeros en la escuela, tienes amigos, puedes hablar con cualquier persona y es saludable hablar de las cosas difíciles y obvio se siente incómodo, pero es para que te sientes mejor.
Un consejo que yo daría para los adolescentes es que no tengan miedo de hablar con sus padres, porque yo sé que a veces nuestros padres nos pueden incomodar cuando hablamos sobre cosas fuertes, pero ellos nos pueden dar consejos porque ellos quieren lo mejor para nosotros, para nuestro futuro.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias, Eric, Sofía, Zaira, Kelly, por su tiempo. Vamos a hacer un cambio para los paneles en inglés. Y otra vez, que pasen buenas noches, les agradecemos su tiempo y ojalá que encontraron este tema para un beneficio para ustedes. Que tengan buenas noches, cuídense.
Thank you so much, Alan, Zaida, Eric, Kelly, Sophia. That was really powerful, and I just so appreciate the perspective and the bravery, and yeah, like you said, the importance of talking about hard things and just making space for each other. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and welcome on our English-speaking panel. So we'll bring Cass, and then Dante, Emily, and Jada will be joining us. And Cass, maybe you can start by giving an intro of ambassadors. Well, we have such a big crew that we have exceeded the capacity of our streaming service. So we are adding people on as we go. So I'll turn it over to you, Cass, to just share about ambassadors.
Excellent. Thanks again for having us tonight, Laurel, and grateful for our Spanish-speaking panel. I am especially excited to be here with a couple of our phenomenal Poudre High School ambassadors. The Poudre High School ambassadors are student mentors at Poudre who are committed to building relationships with their peers that offer safety and authenticity. Each week, these student leaders meet with freshmen at Poudre to teach about and discuss topics such as diversity, sexual assault prevention, stress management, and mental health awareness and support. Their work is essential not just to Poudre, but to our community. And as a counselor at Poudre, I am very thankful every week for what they do, especially for their time in sharing tonight. So we'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. We definitely don't need to be like in order all night by any means, so feel free to bounce in. But Emily, I'll have you start and share your name and your grade at Poudre, but also I'd love to hear kind of where you're at. We'll do like a scale 1 to 10 kind of thing. So 1 being not so great and 10 being best ever. And then share with us too kind of how you're taking care of yourself right now.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a junior at Poudre, and I'm an ambassador, like Miss Ponce said. I'm probably at about a 7 or an 8 right now. During the pandemic, it's been difficult. I'm a theater student, so the thing that brings me joy is, performing and acting. So not doing as much of that has forced me to find some other things that bring me joy. So some things that I'm doing to take care of myself are just blasting music. I'm doing a lot more singing now, and I'm finding virtual opportunities for theater. We're able to do like an outdoor show at Poudre. Finding creative ways to do things that I love has been helpful.
Dante, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Ponce. My name's Dante. I'm a senior at Poudre. I'm also an ambassador, similarly to Emily. And right now, I would say I'm about a 9. If you asked me earlier this week, I would probably give you a lower number. But I just this evening submitted my last college application, and that was a huge step. I got a lot of stuff off my plate tonight, so I finally finished all of that. That's kind of why I'm more towards a 10. Something that I do for self-care, similarly to Emily again, I'm a soccer player, so my soccer season is canceled, like her theater was canceled. So I haven't really been able to play with my organized team, but I've been doing my best to get outside and kick the ball around with my buddies. I'd say that's my main way. I'm a big music listener as well. I like to go to the gym as well, and work out and hang out with some friends. So that's where I'm at.
And then I'm Jada. I'm also a senior and an ambassador at Poudre. Right now I'd say like about a 7. It was kind of a long day, but I'm feeling grateful to be here and like get to kind of talk about mental health. And then something that I've been doing to take care of myself, it's definitely been hard with the pandemic, but I've been spending a lot more time with my family, and we've gotten together and have been able to like bond and like play games with each other. So I think that's been really good.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing that. You know, I'm curious, Jada, you talked about feeling more connection with your family, but for Emily and Dante, clearly theater, soccer, those are areas where you really get to connect with folks. And that's something that feels a little bit harder right now with the pandemic. So what are some things that you all are doing to feel connected to your peers, to your friends? How are you kind of navigating that?
I think kind of like growing like with my family and just like having them as a support system, because I haven't really gotten together with anyone. So playing games with my family, going on hikes with them, like eating dinner, like something as simple as just like eating dinner every night and watching a movie has been helpful. But with like friends, like joining like Google Meets together and just like sharing laughs, talking about our days has been like very essential to staying in touch and staying connected with people.
Yeah, so for me, the pandemic has provided kind of a unique opportunity, I think, for us when we're all isolated with our families inside. I typically don't eat dinner with my family every single night, not during COVID. So this has provided kind of a unique opportunity. Like I said, we're getting together every night. We're eating dinner. We're watching movies together. And in terms of my friends, I don't really have a huge group of friends that I go out and party with every weekend. So I have my close group of friends that we've still been able to be outside together, socially distanced, playing sports, just hanging out. Of course, when it's starting to get colder, it's getting a little bit more difficult, but we're finding our ways around it. So I'm not struggling too much with that. But yeah, I'm doing all right.
So as you guys are talking about your families, I'm curious what conversations about mental health look like in your house. And I guess follow up on that would be, what kind of advice would you want to give to parents as they talk to their teenagers or adolescents about mental health?
I'm good to start with this one. So personally, from my family, it's always kind of been like the basic, how are you? How was your day? Like, how are you feeling today? And that was great. I think with the pandemic, it's been easier for us to like connect and be able to talk more about mental health. And so something like that I would give as advice is to just like listen to your kids and be able to like understand and like sympathize with them with what they're going through, because this is a hard time for everyone, you know, and it's like really important to not be selfish during this time, especially with mental health, and like being able to listen to everybody and their perspectives.
Yeah, and I think the key word there for me was everybody. So something that in my family really helps, that I would give advice to parents as well, is when the parent like initiates the conversation or is open about how they are doing mentally, that has made me more comfortable. And it takes a weight off my shoulders, like, oh, like my parents are going through the same things that I'm going through. They also are dealing with mental health. So having them like maybe initiate the conversation and be vulnerable makes it easier for me to do so.
Well, I can kind of piggyback onto what Emily and Jada were saying. Something that I think parents might not be realizing is how unlucky some of us high school students are at the moment. I know Jada's a senior, similarly to myself, and we're watching our senior year just kind of go by. without us actually being able to participate in it. And Emily's a junior, which also is not very fun for her, I'm sure, but she maybe will have another chance next year. But I think parents need to understand kind of the burden that we're enduring right now. How high school is kind of a one-time thing that we're starting to miss out on. So maybe just hearing our parents sympathize with us is something that's really important during this time.
I certainly can't imagine how hard it must feel to be, feeling like you're maybe missing out on some things that feel really, really important. So I appreciate you naming that, Dante. I'm curious. So I know as ambassadors, you guys have the opportunity to learn a lot about mental health, to do some trainings, and to also kind of pass that knowledge on to younger peers. I'm curious for each of you, is there, as you've kind of expanded your mental health vocabulary, is there something that you've learned that really has been like, whoa, game changer? That helps me think about myself in a different way, or my parent in a different way. Is there anything that really stands out to you as a big aha in terms of mental health?
Yeah, for me, I have an answer for this one. When I started in Ambassadors, and Ambassadors is a mentorship program dedicated to making connections with these freshmen and teaching them these important topics like mental health. And I kind of thought of it as a one-way street, like it was just me relaying the information to these freshmen. And when I was starting to be able to reciprocate some of these values with my freshmen, I was starting to learn from them as they were learning from me. And I think that was the game changer for myself. Just being able to talk about these things that I've learned from Ponce and Bain and some of the mental health professionals, and being able to relay that information to them, and just being able to talk about that has helped me myself. And so that two-way street, I think, is something that's been really beneficial for me and my family.
Kind of going off of what Dante said, before kind of joining Ambassadors and actually teaching freshmen about like mental health and stuff, I never realized how many resources were actually out there for you and how many support systems are like there to help you, which I think is really important for people to understand and learn. And so that's something that I definitely would take away.
The biggest thing I've learned is how I can personally help others. And I have like a few responses now in my back pocket for like how to support somebody in the moment, and things that I can say that can help and validate them, and things that like, and one example, something that doesn't really necessarily help is asking why questions, like, oh, well, why haven't you told me sooner, is something that I've learned is not a great thing to say, because it kind of puts the guilt and the shame on the individual that's approaching you. So learning how to better support my friends and family in a way that kind of in a way that is actually helpful and makes them feel comfortable and validated has been very important and enlightening.
When you talk about supporting people, whether it's your peers or family or whomever you're talking to around conversations around mental health, what are some of the main issues that you're seeing come up for folks? Like, what are people talking about?
The thing that me and my peers and my family are experiencing the most is just like a lot of uncertainty and, just anxiety about the world, about school. Something like for me, it's, a lot of my family members live on both coasts, so it's a lot of fear about like not being able to see like grandparents. So I think anxiety and just feeling disconnected from people, and unsure of like how people are doing and how people are going to be has been difficult.
I think, oh, sorry, Dante, but I think another thing that Emily kind of touched on was like disconnection. I think a lot of people being like having everything online, it's really hard to connect with people, and some people don't have a good support system at home. And so I found that that's been a serious struggle for people that I've been working with and talking to.
Well, aside from COVID, which Emily and Jada mentioned, which is an obvious stressor in high schoolers' lives, something that I hear from my friends and my freshmen as well, in my ambassador small group, is kind of the pressure of high school. For us seniors especially, kind of the looming uncertain future of college. That's something that I suffer from as well. Just kind of that anxiety of not knowing where you're going to be next year or in the next 2 or 3 years. That's something that stresses me out and kind of contributes to my anxiety. But I think that a lot of people share similar issues.
Yeah, kind of touching on that, Dante. Another thing that makes me very anxious is just the expectations and the pressure like I put on myself. I know as a high school student, a lot of us like are motivated by grades. So just like feeling pressure to like get a certain grade and perform at a certain level and like try and juggle like extracurriculars in school can be challenging at times. So something that's helpful is like learning when to delegate and learning when to be like, oh, there's no way I can get all of this done tonight. Like the best thing I can do right now is sleep and rest, have a good meal, and resume in the morning.
Emily, I feel like you were sort of starting to go in this direction, but I'm interested to hear from each of you. I think it is often, at least a personal experience for me, that I feel like I'm a lot kinder to other people than I am to myself, and that I can be really hard on myself. So if you have a friend who's experiencing like some of that pressure, that stress, what is something that you would say to that friend to support them in that moment of pressure?
For me personally, I think something that's important is to just know that you're there for them, and just something that I like to say is like, what can I do to help you? Like, what do you need from me to make you feel better about this? I understand that like sometimes it's something that they have to go through alone, but it's always nice to know that like somebody is there in their corner if they need it. So that's kind of my thought process on that.
I think if someone came to me with that specific scenario, I would tell them to give themselves a break. I think oftentimes high schoolers don't even appreciate some of the work that they're doing themselves, and they just keep going week in, week out, finishing their work, striving to be their best, striving to meet their own expectations, that they don't ever give themselves a pat on the back. So I would tell them to give themselves a pat on the back and take it easy on themselves.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, like telling them it's okay to like take a moment, take a breather, and do something that you love. So maybe and like offering, I think, like Jada said, just being there and saying that you're someone they can talk to if they feel comfortable, and just being willing to just help them in that moment, help them with whatever they need, if it's a distraction or if it's like a phone call. Yeah.
Trying to think what I just have like a million questions mulling here. So, Ash, you guys all play, I mean, I tell you this every week, play an instrumental role in the mental health and the climate and the culture of Poudre High School. And I think Poudre does a great job, hopefully, of supporting you all. And what are the schools missing? What are we missing as educators and maybe as a system around supporting the mental health of teens?
Well, I think that's a difficult question to answer, Ponce. I think you, of all people, are doing a great job, kind of the pioneer of the ambassadors program and getting us upperclassmen into the classrooms of these freshmen who haven't heard much talk about mental health throughout their schooling career. More things, I don't know how we could improve that, getting kids together more often. I think right now, in an all remote learning period, this is the most difficult time to address this. I don't know if I have any specific advice to how we could do better, but trying to get us together more often, upperclassmen and lower classmen, and just getting the community together more often, I think could be something.
I completely agree with Dante. I think that it's something that's important is to getting those kids together and like being able to like talk to each other, no matter the grade. And I think that like it's definitely really hard right now, but it's something that can always be improved. I don't think that there will ever be a time where that isn't going to it's going to reach like a max, like this is the best it can be. That's always something that can be worked on and in the school system.
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult question to answer, but I know something that is a little bit divisive at times is the pathways, even though like it allows us to like pursue things we're very passionate about. So maybe just having opportunities for people to get together virtually and like have empathy for one another. And another thing, like just like fostering a community where people like, I think Poudre does have respect for one another, but I think fostering a community where we become more aware of like respecting like people's pronouns and like gender identities in order to make like the community more comfortable. And just like I think Ambassadors is really helpful in that sense because it allows freshmen in every single pathway to learn about issues and about respect.
It's wonderful to hear, and I'm not surprised knowing Cass how positive your experience and how supported you all do feel. I'm curious about your perception of kind of the way that society or our community thinks about mental health in general. I think we sometimes talk about like some generational changes, like some generations might be more willing or interested in talking about mental health. Do you feel like it's something that you feel comfortable talking about with anyone? Do you feel like we still have some work to do? Where are we at?
I think that we have some work to do, to be honest. I think that our generation sometimes assesses mental health as someone who is who's struggling. I don't think that we often recognize the mental health issues that people who seem put together are going through. This goes for a couple of my friends. They are excellent students, great athletes, and they seem to have a really good plan for their future. And some of these kids are suffering from mental health issues like depression and anxiety because people don't really expect to hear that they're depressed or that they're suffering from anxiety. So they don't have people asking them those important questions that someone who is outrightly suffering from mental health would be getting asked. And so I think as a society, we need to try to be a little more proactive rather than reactive in terms of these mental health issues.
In my personal experience, I've never really run into like issues talking with my own generation about mental health. I think that people are more open to the idea of everybody struggling or like more people struggling. And I think that in some settings, it's like sometimes with adults, they don't want to talk about it or it's an uncomfortable subject. And so it's kind of hard for them to discuss that. But I've never run into a problem with teenagers or anything like that.
I think we do have a lot of work to do still, even though progress has been made. I know personally, I feel like shame and guilt talking about mental health. And it's not something I talk about with my friends often. It's mostly something I just try and support people through. And I think, Dante, as Dante said, we have to like respectfully and have like know how to support others with what they're going through, and also just like find a way for us to feel comfortable talking with others about it.
So I asked you all to be on this panel about a month ago and said that you're going to be talking about mental health. So you've had, some time to mull this over. What's the number one thing or the top couple of things that you wanted to make sure got said?
I touched on it slightly in my last answer, but I want everyone that's listening to understand that every different person has a hidden story. every person has something that they're going through that not everyone is aware of. Like I mentioned, people that seem put together are struggling with things at home, and people that are struggling oftentimes with something even greater. So I want people to consider kind of that iceberg analogy, that there's 80% of what we know of someone is, or 80% of someone is what we don't know, and that other 20% is what we see in reality. So we need to really consider that other 80% that's going on underneath.
Something that I was really wanting to touch on for this panel was definitely like family and how you can get support through your families and through your parents and what they can do to help you or me personally. So I think that we touched on that a little bit, and I'm really like glad that we did.
Something I was thinking about is, even though there's a lot to be grateful for, or like stuff that you can appreciate and find joy in, that doesn't mean that everything is wonderful or everything is perfect. So being able to tell yourself and others that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay not to be okay so long as you have a support system and so long as people are receptive and willing to help.
I really appreciate kind of recognizing with each of you and being reminded how much mental health is a journey. Like, it's not a destination you arrive at and you're suddenly like, nailed it, I know about mental health, handled, I'm good. And so I want to actually put Cass on the spot and just ask you a question. You know, you have the good fortune of working with these amazing people, these 7 panelists, plus lots more this year and in previous years. So what has been a big learning for you as you've worked through conversations around mental health with ambassadors?
Wow. Well, these guys are the experts, which is why they're here. And I think what Dante just shared around the idea that we've all got stories that are far beyond the surface is definitely one of my biggest learnings. And Jada and Dante know this, and Emily hopefully will next year, but we do an activity at our retreat that we were unable to do this year, where people have an opportunity to kind of anonymously share some of the stuff that's going on in their world, and or has gone on in their world in a really powerful way. And we frame that as a perspective for these guys, or for these students that are ambassadors, is when they walk into a freshman seminar class, that's who's sitting in front of them, and probably adolescents with stories far greater than theirs. Not that, you know, you all don't have stories, and we all recognize our privilege in that too. And so, yeah, I think it's a journey, like you said, Laurel, and there's a lot more behind each of us than what we show up with, and that's why it's important to have these conversations.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we just have about a minute left, so I want to give one more chance to our panel. You know, knowing that there are probably all kinds of folks watching, they might be some of your peers, they might be your parents, they might be my parents. What is one last piece of advice or word of encouragement that you would give just right now around mental health and taking care of yourself? One last thing you want to share?
I think I'd like to share that with like physical health, it's taken very seriously in our society. And just like physical health, mental health is always fluctuating, and it needs to be taken seriously because everybody have bodies, and bodies can get hurt, and everybody has a brain, and the brain is constantly changing, and our lives are constantly changing. So understanding that while mental health can be challenging, it is normal, and there's always someone who's willing to help you through those changes.
going straight off of what Emily said, you are not alone in anything, and like there will always be somebody that's willing to listen and willing to help you through anything that you're going through. And so kind of just like knowing that and keeping that in the back of your head that like somebody does care and somebody does want to hear your story.
Well, just to finish things off, I'll share a quote from my favorite movie, Finding Nemo. Dory always sings, just keep swimming. And so I think in this year of uncertainty, in this year of COVID-19, I think it's really important that we all need to be able to persevere, and we all just have to keep swimming metaphorically through life. So that's what I'll leave it with.
That's the perfect note to end on. I love it. Well, just want to thank one more time Emily, Jada, and Dante. And of course, Cass, thank you for being a wonderful co-moderator. And to Alan and our Spanish-speaking panel, super grateful for your stories, your perspectives, your voices. I know I'm leaving this conversation feeling a lot better and more connected. So just want to express that gratitude. And to folks watching at home, we do hope that the museum will be open again soon so we can share the exhibit with you. We have another Discovery Live coming up next week, so please tune into that. And again, if you did enjoy this programming and you are interested in supporting the museum and bringing more programming like this to the community, you can visit fcmod.org/donate. We are so grateful for the support of our community and so honored to be part of this conversation about mental health. So thank you all and have a wonderful evening.